Can I make a point of order? Is this an opportunity to talk about some of these things right now?
Just name and address, sir.
If that's okay. I have some written comments that I'd like to submit. Is that possible too? Sure, it's Paul Rosselli, 665 Maureen Circle, Mapleville, Rhode Island. I have some written comments that I'd like to submit. Is that possible to do within the context of what's being discussed right now?
You can submit them. I don't know that we can answer your questions right now.
No, they're not questions. They're definitely not questions.
We'll take your comments, no problem.
Comments, great. And I'd like to summarize some of those comments, and this might actually help. And this might actually help some of the areas that you're talking about. First of all, tonight I'm representing the Burrillville Land Trust, and I'd actually like to thank the town, and particularly the town solicitors, for the April 13th, 2016 set of data requests that just came out, I think, earlier this morning. The data request, this is your fifth set of data requests, and it was submitted, I think, earlier this morning. Many of the items on that set of data request echoes the emotions and the feelings and the concerns of the Burrillville Land Trust. I'd like to add something to some of those items that as a way, and they're in the written comments, and I won't read some of the long things, but I'll summarize each one of them. This may help you understand some of the other things that are going on within that set of data requests of 1 through 5. The first one is that the Energy Facility Siting Board hired this group called ESS, and they put together, being a land trust, we're involved in land preservation as well as biodiversity issues, water and air quality issues. And as you know, and I've stated this before in some of our motions to dismiss and to close the docket, was that the application itself is lacking in much of what's considered to be normal biodiversity reporting when it comes to a project of this scale. So I'd like to ask you to make sure, whoever your experts are, to provide a full detailed, this is item number 1, a full detailed species count of all the species, whether they be vertebrate or invertebrate, within the site of all the impact areas. Number 2, we've got to remember that the way they're doing this, they're segmenting each one of these projects. The wastewater treatment pipeline, National Grid putting in another corridor, they're segmenting it. There is some court law that prevents them or prevents other agencies like the Army Corps of Engineers, Planning Board within the town of Burrillville, yourselves, at looking at this as separate items. So what I'm suggesting to you, and this comes from the U.S. Supreme Court, I've listed the court cases within the document there, both the District Court of District of Columbia, as well as the Supreme Court way back in 1976, that you look at this as an entire project. And that entire project includes not only the building of the power plant, the new pipeline, the new transmission line to the existing corridor, the 6.8-mile additional line within that corridor, also a 10.8-mile line from the Sherman Road switching station to A&P Blackstone. That's a small power plant within the Blackstone area. Item number 3, I'm still not sure that the jurisdiction of both Clear River and Branch River doesn't fall within the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. They were designed and authorized by law to protect not only the Blackstone River, but tributaries leading to the Blackstone River. So I'm asking you, as one of the town solicitors, in your next set of data requests, to ask the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor for an opinion as to who controls, controls is the wrong word, but who is authorized, who has the jurisdiction over the Clear and Branch rivers. Item number 4, we've got to remember that once the electricity gets to the Jackson, Sherman Road substation, it travels through another line and ends up somewhere in Blackstone. Once it's in Blackstone, and there's a notation on that, item that I sent you, most of that energy, from what I can find, ends up in Boston. Town of Burrillville, state of Rhode Island, gets very little of that energy directed back to the state, and very little of it goes back to the town. What I'm asking the town council to do is to put in some guarantees that there'll be some offsets. And there's an item on number 4 there that suggests that Invenergy, if the power plant is produced, that they set aside a certain amount of money each and every year for the design, construction, implementation, and installation of solar panels for over the course of 5 years or 10 years, every town within the town of Burrillville. Item number 5, we've got to remember that once that corridor along the existing power line that National Grid owns, once they cut another 150-foot swath of clear cutting, 6.8 miles, then now, all of a sudden, magically, the Burrillville Land Trust is in a butter. I want the town council to take the role of, or take on the responsibility of advocating for the Burrillville Land Trust, because now we're in a butter to the project. Not the power line by National Grid, but in a butter to the project. And lastly, with all your experts, I want to make sure that the one you hire for biodiversity is as expert as the ones we hired. Because a few years ago, we did hire someone to do a biodiversity assessment of our new properties along the Clear River and our existing property that a previous town council graciously and wisely was able to transfer those 16 acres along South Shore Road to the Burrillville Land Trust. And I've put in number 6 that way back in 2007, Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management had probably some of the best experts in the world when it came to biodiversity issues for the northern part of this state. That program called the National Heritage Program was constructed by RIDEM, funded by public funds, taxpayer money, and they spent an enormous amount of time in northern Rhode Island. That's the expert. Places like George Washington Management Area, Black Hut, Pulaski, many of the Burrillville Land Trust lands that were either donated or purchased with open space funds are the result of that investment from the Natural Heritage Program at RIDEM. Those are the experts you should go after. They know this area like no other person in the world. We have a report, and I would like to, at another point in time, submit that report to you and ask that you combine that report on the biodiversity of those areas within whatever your experts come up with, and combine it into that report as well.
Mr. Roselli, as you know, the town has submitted 5 requests, data requests. For people that don't know what that is, it's questions that have to be answered under oath. requesting specifics from Invenergy so that our experts can evaluate what their experts have done. We will do, and we have done in the past, whenever somebody suggests something of substance, we submit that data request, and there are probably 100 of them. I do want to point out that the siting board gave specific instructions to this town, and not to the council,
Right.
but to the planning board and the zoning board, building official, tax assessor. Just very few items to address, not biodiversity,
Oh, sorry, I left.
there are 15, I believe 15 agencies that the siting board has directed to give advisory opinions to the siting board. One of which is the Rhode Island Office of Energy Resources. And what they're looking for is probably what you're referring to. And it's that agency that's going to be answering or giving them advisory opinions with respect to two items: the impact of the facility on anticipated greenhouse gas emissions that would result from this facility, whether the facility will conform to the requirements and provisions of the Resilient Rhode Island Act. Those are the two items
Sure.
that probably affect you.
Yeah, there's probably a few more.
DEM, Department of Environmental Management, is charged with providing them with advisory opinions with respect to whether proposed fuel oil storage facilities would conform to all oil pollution control regulations, and if not, is a waiver justified?
Yes,
What is the impact of
I've
the...
read all of them. I've read
Right.
all of
When you're
the,
raising it, though, they need to,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
we're just expounding, so everybody that isn't privy to those discussions might want to hear the information.
and they're on your website, by the way. Most, all of these are on the town's
what I-
website. You've got links to the Energy Facility Siting Board. Yes, they're all available.
What I'm getting
I'm
at,
not-
for those
yeah.
that are not as educated as you are, because you're very familiar with this, is that the town's role is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
The siting board directed us to answer specific questions. Is the facility compliant with the comprehensive plan? Is the noise ordinance going to be complied with? And if not, why not, or what can we do about it?
Sure.
Those are the items that our planning board, those two items, and the only two items that our planning board is authorized to address themselves to.
Absolutely, and within the comprehensive plan, there's a whole list of other areas and everything from
Right. And that's-
forest and
Right.
roads and
And our,
everything, water and everything. So I'm asking,
and our zoning officer is very familiar with that, and we have data requests specifically for those issues.
And I-
So we will be doing everything we can.
and I know you do, and I really do know
And I
that,
want the rest of the audience to know that whatever information we have up to April 28th, in 2 weeks, our experts will be able to come here, and this is going to be the place where the hearing is going to take place. The zoning board and the planning board are going to be educated by our experts, and you're more than welcome to be here to listen to them. And that's the beginning of the process. There's more to it. As more information comes to us from the Invenergy company, we're going to give that data that they provide to us back to our experts, have our experts review that. They may modify their opinion. We're going to have further hearings. There are, I believe, 20 different dates with hearings in front of the Public Utilities Commission, in front of DEM. Our experts are going to be involved in that process as well, not just with the town. So this council is doing everything it possibly can to help the town, I'm not saying fight the project, but to review it critically, see if we can influence what the siting board's going to do, and if we can't influence them, at least have them impose conditions that are beneficial to the community.
Paul, I believe what you're saying to John and the council is, the expert, plural, that comes here, we just don't want it to be stranger from afar. We want somebody that actually knows.
well,
Because
that's,
a lot, the joke is in the industry, an expert is a stranger from afar. You make a good point, Paul, about having somebody local that knows the area.
well, I think that can be worked in. If I'm allowed to provide a report And with all due respect to everybody here, many of the items, particularly in the latest one, I can almost look at word for word verbatim of something that I either wrote or the Borough of Land Trust wrote. So in this last data set, this last fifth, number 5 data set, there were quite a few that were already in there that again, we at the Land Trust echoed really well.
Let me clarify this. Just so you understand, Mr. Roselli, you gave me a document a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Conservation Commission gave me a document a couple months ago. What I said was that Mr. Roselli gave me and the council a document a couple of months ago. The Conservation Commission gave us a document a couple months ago. And we have those things being analyzed right now by our people
Sure.
to see whether or not what you're asking for makes some sense or doesn't make any sense. Though the information hasn't come back yet specifically because there's a lot of work to be done and there's a long way to go. So we are doing and we are responding, whether you like it or not or you know it or not, your stuff is out there, it is being looked at. If our-
I
if
applauded
our
everybody when I
people-
first opened my mouth. I said, on behalf, I would like to thank the
But
town
my
and
point
the
is,
town council, particularly for this last set of data
The
sets.
point-
I
Well,
never,
that's data points that hasn't necessarily to do with you, but they may. But the point I'm getting to is,
they
we
look,
already have people ready to go.
I don't know.
We can't afford to hire everybody on the planet to study this thing more times than once. Your information, if it's there, it's been sent to our people, they're looking at it. So whatever you have for credible information is out there in our world, and we're looking at it. So I don't know what else to
Yeah.
tell you, if there's something else you give us that makes some sense to
I
submit.
I
and
just
send
did.
out.
I submitted
Well,
something
okay,
that
we'll
I...
look at it.
Okay,
We'll look
great,
at it.
perfect.
Right.
But we're not dismissing you, and we're not dismissing the
I
Conservation
never felt that
Commission.
you were.
We're trying
I
to
was
get-
just the opposite. First thing I said when I got up here was to praise all of you. So-
I know you got your own issues here, and we're happy to work with you. I'm told you.
Mike,
before.
he's saying good things about us.
I know,
Saying
just
good
let it
things.
lie. Let it go.
John, the lady asked,
Paul, we gotta have to,
It's not going to happen.
we gotta move on the agenda.
No, it's not what it's saying. It's not what it's saying.